It is impossible to drive cars of these present-day technology without a bunch of sensors. The advanced engineering and performance you now enjoy in your sport cars, bikes, cannot be without the role of crankshaft position sensor. So what is crankshaft position sensor? Why is it vital to internal combustion engines of modern-day automotive technology? It's important to know what was playing the role of crankshaft position sensor back in 80s. In 1980, there is no such component as crankshaft position sensor in those days. However, the introduction of electronic control module gave birth that transition from what was then known as distributor to what we now know as crankshaft position sensor, and host of other input sensor designed to feed exclusive information about the well-being of the internal combustion engine to the ECU, which also assist in optimal internal combustion engine's operation. The distributor systems don't have camshaft position sensor or crankshaft position sensor, as this system plays both roles to facilitate the distribution of sparks to different cylinders in internal combustion for the core purpose of igniting the air-fuel mixture. The introduction of crankshaft position sensor has completely phased out the distributor systems. Crankshaft position sensor is an electrical induction generator that is designed to generate signal that will assist the ECM to ignite the right cylinder hosting the air-fuel mixture in a multiple cylinder engine systems in a sequential order. Symptoms of a bad crankshaft position sensor. The crankshaft sensor is a vital part of the car engine. It relays valuable information to the motor, affecting fuel injection and spark timing. When the crankshaft position sensor fails, you can run into performance issues or get stranded. The crankshaft position (CKP) sensor is responsible for measuring the speed and position of the crankshaft. A notched or toothed wheel on the crankshaft or harmonic balancer sends a signal to the engine's computer showing its position. The computer uses the information from the CKP sensor to determine fuel injection and spark timing. The CKP signal may also be used for other systems, such as variable valve timing. All vehicles built after 1996 also use the CKP sensor to determine engine misfires problems. Here are some of the most common. 1. Check engine light. When the signal between the CKP sensor and PCM signal is faulty, the check engine light comes on. In fact, this can be one of the very first signs that something is wrong, before any symptoms are noticed. If the check engine light is on, you should be able to read the diagnostic trouble codes, DTC, that were set in the system. You may see a code that references the camshaft position, crankshaft position, or the camshaft or crankshaft position sensors. A simple internet search of the code will provide details about the error. 2. Engine refuses to start. For a gas engine to run correctly, it needs 3 things: a spark, a balanced air-fuel ratio, and compression. If the CKP sensor goes bad, the PCM won't know when to fire the spark plugs and when to operate the fuel injectors. Because of this malfunction, the engine may become starved of fuel, or may lack the spark it needs to run. Therefore, it may become difficult or impossible to start the engine. 3. Engine stalling. The CKP sensor can cause an erratic signal as it fails. When the information becomes distorted, the engine may stall because of issues in the spark or fuel functions. If the engine stalls and won't restart, you could be left stranded. 4. Rough running engine. As previously discussed, a bad CKP sensor leads to miscalculation of the fuel injector, operation and timing of the spark. If the engine doesn't stall as a result of this problem, it could run rough. You may even deal with misfires, which feel like a stumble or shaking sensations. If the vehicle is under a load, the shaking will likely be more noticeable. You shouldn't continue driving your vehicle with a misfire, as it can lead to other more costly damage, such as to the catalytic converter. 5. Reduced fuel economy. If the engine isn't getting the proper balance of fuel and air, or if it's running rough, fuel economy will drop. The issue can be further exacerbated by a faulty CKP sensor inhibiting fuel-saving functions. This problem can stop the cylinder deactivation and variable valve timing systems from working, leading to wasted fuel. 6. Vibrations in the engine. Vibration from the engine is usually the cause. Failed sensor means no monitoring of the crankshaft position. It causes the engine to start vibrating heavily. Ultimately, the juddering can affect the engine power and mess with the recording of mileage. 7. Slow response from the accelerator. Accelerators sometimes cannot follow up. Photo, Quebec 95. If the sensor is facing any trouble, it won't send correct information about the position of the cylinders. It means there will be a gap between the computer receiving data and applying it. When your vehicle's speed increases, there's a need to be changed, the sparks and fuel timing. If the rotations are not being measured by the sensors, it makes sense why the car doesn't accelerate smoothly. For this reason, the accelerator hesitates and does not give a real-time response. 8. Erratic starting. One of the most serious crankshaft position sensor symptoms. The computer receives a malfunction code when the sensor is completely gone. With the engine control module not being able to read the RPM or position of the crankshafts, it won't be able to know when to command the spark or fuel for the combustion. The symptom starts with difficulty in starting and leaves the car dead one day if you don't get it fixed. The starting problem could be the result of an electrical connection or circuit problems too. 9. Misfiring of the cylinder. A misfiring cylinder is a common response to sensor problems. It's a common response when your car experiences some crankshaft position sensor symptoms. A failing sensor cannot provide correct information about the piston position, causing one of the cylinders to misfire. An issue with the spark plug will also draw the same response. However, if the problem persists after handling all the other issues, the sensor is likely to be the culprit. Even when there is no any registered error code regarding a failing crankshaft position sensor upon scanning your vehicle. 10. Stalling and backfiring. It's a common response when your car experiences some crankshaft position sensor symptoms. A failing sensor cannot provide correct information about the piston position, causing one of the cylinders to misfire. An issue with the spark plug will also draw the same response. However, if the problem persists after handling all the other issues, the sensor is likely to be the culprit. There are a number of different problems that can cause symptoms similar to when the crankshaft position sensor is damaged. The above signs may be due to a fault in the ignition system or the fuel injection system. Before you conclude that the crankshaft position sensor is faulty, you may need to do some checks, but the best way is to take the car to the garage. 11. Car shut down randomly and start right up. If you noticed that as you are driving, your car suddenly shut down and randomly, when you attempt to start it up, it starts right up. This is due to a known issue related to failing crankshaft position sensor, which when it began to fail, it will intermittent stop sending out the right signal that facilitate accurate ignition of the air-fuel mixture. This is a clear indication that your crankshaft position sensor is defective and needs a replacement. In some car makes, you may experience the symptoms explained above, while in some other car make, you may experience different strange symptoms entirely. 12. Car takes time or do long cranking before starting. If you noticed your car starts just fine in the morning, afterwards park overnight. However, your car struggled to start up when your engine heats up. If you shut down your vehicle after long hours driving, then suddenly discovered your car struggles to start up when engine temperature has rising up significantly, you may be dealing with a bad crankshaft position sensor, although there are other components that could mimic such symptoms. 13. P0300 error code. If you are constantly getting P0300 error code on your scanner, this code means multiple cylinder misfiring. There are few factors that can host these trouble code, and a failing crankshaft position sensor is one of them. Reasons: because when the crankshaft position sensor began to fail, it provides little to no irrelevant signal that mislead the ECM into making the wrong decision, such as pre-detonation or igniting the air-fuel mixture too early or too late. When the crankshaft position sensor sends a false signals to the ECM will have no clues as to knowing the right cylinder to ignite the air-fuel mixture, which will subsequently result in firing multiple cylinders simultaneously or not firing the right cylinder as it should, which will result in random misfiring or multiple cylinder misfiring. 14. RPM needle will not move during hard start situation. When your vehicle is experiencing hard start, There is a need to look at the instrument cluster for a missing signal of the crankshaft position sensor that is often reflected on the RPM needle. While cranking the car, keep your eyes focused on the RPM needle. It should deflect slightly when you are cranking the car to start up. If the RPM needle stays dead while you are cranking your car, that's a sure sign that your crankshaft position sensor is bad. 15. No injector pulse. The crankshaft position sensor is designed to take accurate reading of the crankshaft rotations and deliver this message to the ECM, which will use that information to create injector pulse. Meaning, the ECM relies on the crankshaft position sensor signal to actuate other components within the engine network. If the crankshaft position sensor fails to provide this signal, the ECM will not generate injector pulse, which will operate the injectors to allow fuel into the combustion chamber, leading to fuel starvation and consequently crank no start. 16. No spark. Most technicians or DIY can be quick into raiding the parts stores to buy a spark plugs or ignition coils when they fall into these situations of no spark. However, this can be more dramatic than replacement of the spark plugs, as they are clueless about the ECM range of capabilities in internal combustion engines, which includes restrictions of sparks when the crankshaft position sensor failed, which is a legendary indicative of a failed crankshaft position sensor. However, there are other components within the network of the automotive system that can create no spark in your internal combustion engines. How to test crankshaft and camshaft position sensors. Check out the video below. If the car doesn't start at all, you won't have to worry about driving it. This is a common problem when the CKP sensor fails. If the vehicle starts, you may feel tempted to drive, but you shouldn't. Intermittent CKP issues can quickly lead to stalling and the inability to restart the car. You could end up stranded away from home, waiting for roadside assistance. The best option is to diagnose and replace the faulty sensor at the first sign of trouble. Diagnosing a bad crankshaft position sensor. There is a video in my channel about how to test a crankshaft position sensor. If you suspect there's an issue with the crankshaft position sensor, start by visually inspecting it. If there are any cracks or damage, the sensor should be replaced. There could also be a corroded or loose connector that can be easily repaired. It's also important to look at the gap between the sensor tip and reluctor ring, the toothed ring on the crankshaft that interacts with the CKP for precise timing. It must be a precise measurement that's listed in your vehicle's service manual. Use the service manual to find the proper testing procedures for your vehicle. If your vehicle has a pickup coil sensor, check the resistance. Usually, if the internal resistance measures 200 to 1000 ohms, the sensor is working normally. If you get a 0 ohms value, it has a short circuit. Otherwise, an ohm reading indicates some type of interruption. If you don't know which design the crankshaft position sensor uses, do not use an ohm meter for testing. The voltage used during testing can destroy a Hall generator. Hall-type sensors need to have the ground signal tested. Fails to send accurate signals. I am certain that this video have assisted you to remove the guesswork and determine if your car have a defective crankshaft position sensor. Do subscribe to my channel, share this video with your pals. I look forward to see you in my next class. Now that I have break the records of providing you with streams of information concerning a faulty crankshaft sensor like no other on the internet space, if you are not subscribing to my channel and liking this video, do you left that part for ghost or something? Thanks for watching. If you are interested to knowing more components that can cause similarly symptoms as crankshaft position sensor, be sure to join my membership or purchase my